In this video, we're going to be looking at if statements and selection. Now, selection is the first time when we're going to start introducing logic into our programs, and it's really important to be able to change the flow of a program by making a decision at certain points. Okay, so a lot of what we want to do, which is useful in programming, tends to be revolve around if statements. So far, the programs we've seen have all been fairly sequential, so they've been running from start to finish, all in order. That isn't how a lot of programs really want to work. So we want to be able to make a decision based on something happening. So for example, if I press a key on the keyboard, my player on the screen will jump up. If the score is above 12, then something else will happen. So let's have a look at this flow chart. Now hopefully you've seen these kind of flow charts in Key Stage 3. If not, here's a flow chart. So I get a value from the user. If that value is greater than 12, so remember that symbol for maths if you've not seen it before. If it is, then I'm going to say the output must be less than 12. Otherwise, I'll times that number by 12 and output it. And then I stop. So I can follow the flow by following the arrows. And I've got a decision here whether it is bigger than 12. If it is, I'll do one thing. If it's not, do another. So this is what we'd call a branch in our program. And the way the program goes from start to the end is known as the flow of the program. So we can change the flow. So change the order of which instructions, or sorry, not the order, which. So a couple of keywords: flow, the order in which the program statements are run; branching, when the code jumps to another part of the program. This is changing the flow of the program; and selection, a section of code which has a condition, and run code depending if the condition was true or false. Now I introduced these three words because sometimes in the exam you will see them, and some students get really confused by them. They know what an if statement is inside and out, but then they see these words and they kind of just lose it slightly, because it's not the kind of words we tend to use when talking about if statements. We just simply say if statements. So it's worth just bearing in mind that these words can come up. So let's look at the anatomy of an if statement. So if statements will start off with the keyword if. Now before I come on to that, I just want to remind you about input. So I've got my input code pattern and I'm asking for a number, and then I am casting that into an integer, and then I'm storing to the variable value. So if statements start off with the keyword if, it's then followed by an expression. Okay, that expression must always evaluate to true or false. Okay, so in this case, I've got value is greater than 12. So in this scenario, it'll either be yes or no. It is bigger or it's not bigger. Okay, so it must always evaluate to true and false. Okay, if it doesn't, the if statement's not going to work. If it is true, it's going to run the code on line 3. Okay, if it's false, it's going to run the code on line 5. So the else of an if statement is basically saying the false part of my program, whilst the code immediately underneath the if statement is the true part. At the end of my if statement, there's a colon, and that is simply just saying that's the end of my conditions. It's quite easy to forget to put the colon in, so that's why I'm highlighting it. Now notice that these two print statements have been indented in. They're actually not in line with the else and the if. For code to be inside the if statement true block, we need to indent it in by 1. And for the code to be inside the false part, again, we need to indent it by 1. This is how Python knows that code should be inside the if statement or not. Okay, so it's just a way of saying, well, this code is. So indentation is really, really important in Python. Okay, it's something that you need to get used to very quickly. Different levels of indentation signify different code blocks. Okay, so this level of indentation tells me this is the true block, and then this indentation tells me this is the false block. Okay, without it, Python would not know which code belongs to which if statements, and later on which code belongs to which while loop. Okay. Now you've got a choice to make. You can either use tabs to indent your code, or you can use spaces. Okay. Now our tab is the key that is immediately underneath the escape key. So, well, not immediately underneath. You've got a funny symbol which looks like a L on the side with a little apostrophe, and then immediately under that you've got another symbol, and that's the tab key. For some reason, some people actually don't know what the tab key looks like, so I thought I'd make that a bit clear. Or I'm sure you would know what the space key is. If you see this error where it says indentation error, this is really confusing for new programs in Python. What it means is you've got your tabs wrong. Simply that. So the easiest way to get rid of the error is maybe take your tabs out, put them back in again, or look to see if something has been indented incorrectly. Sometimes it's because you've mixed up tabs and spaces. So if you've done that, Python really does not like it, and it will give you this indentation error. And you can't always see it because it will look like it's fine, but actually we've used spaces rather than tabs, or vice versa. My biggest tip is use tabs. It's much easier to handle it, and you're less likely to make mistakes. Okay, so stick with tabs, and you won't go far wrong. So we can have as many if statements in our code as we want to, and we can have different blocks. You can see here I've labelled 3 blocks of code, so B1, B2, B3, and notice that each of these have been indented in here. Okay, so we've got 3 true code blocks. Notice I haven't put an else in any of these, so we don't need to have an else there. The indented code will only run if the immediate condition above it is true. So this line 5 only runs if line 4 is true. Line 7 only runs if line 6 is true, and you can probably work out line 9 will only run if line... It's probably time to start practicing your if statements. Again, start at challenge 1 and work your way through and start having to go at some of these if statement tasks. Now it's time to look at a few more things you can do with if statements. So look at else and elif. So sometimes we may want to link together or use lots of if statements. We could, if you wanted to, use lots of if statements all nested into each other, but good. So here, look at this example. I want to have a test score, so I enter a number, and depending on the number, I want to output a grade. If I enter the number 34, okay, it's going to output all of these. Well, that's incorrect. What it should say is if it's it should really print out just D on its own. Okay, but let's see why it's doing that. So it starts off with line 3. It says if score is less than 20. Well, no, it's not. So it skips over it. Is 34 less than 30? No. So it skips over that. Is 34 less than 40? Yes. So this prints out. But it then continues on. Is the score less than 50? Well, 34 is less than 50, so it prints out the C. Then it prints out the B. Then it prints out the A, because all these will become true, which is why we get the wrong outputs. We only want one of these printing. To do that, we can use elif. The way elif works is it kind of works its way down until one of these is true. So in this case, 34 again, so that's not true, so it goes over that. 34 is not less than 30, so it goes over that. 34 is less than 40, so it ticks that. The second one of these becomes true, it just doesn't do the rest of them. Okay, it doesn't even bother trying. So these ones won't get run at all. Okay, so it stops the if statements. So elif allows you to try different things out until one of them becomes true. As soon as one of them becomes true, it then does not run any of the rest of that if statement. Now, if I want to chain together lots of if statements, I must always start with the word if. Okay, you must always start with that. Then every condition afterwards must have elif, and then if I wanted to, I could have else at the end, and else is basically means if all else fails, run this. Okay, so this is effectively my false. If all the elif so far all be false, then run this code. So elif allows only one path to be followed rather than having to try every single if statement separately. So again, go back to the if statements and have another go. You should be able to access all of the tasks in there by now.